Okay, so how does this relate to RuneQuest as it proceeded? Because there's a two very interesting players in this mix. One is the Avalon Hill RuneQuest, which appeared actually quite early much earlier than I thought, because it was re-released in 1993, but actually dates back to about a decade earlier. So that kicks in. And then we have the BRP licensing as seen across Europe. And there is a RuneQuest that appears, I think, at that point as well in Europe. So we have these other things appearing, and I can't really parse all of them, putting those, especially some of them, being slightly edited or appearing in different kinds of boxes and stuff like that. That's nightmarish. Somebody's got to figure that out, who's not me. But I can speak to the Avalon Hill version. So you should think of this as, culturally speaking, all kind of being available in a batch, across whatever it was you happened to buy or wherever it was you happened to live. And the Avalon Hill is also kind of a hybrid too of different gaming systems. Again, you are playing in these rounds and you're frozen until your go. So it has more of that BRP phenomenon. And you calculate something called strike rank, and you use the same numerical details as in original RuneQuest. But since you're frozen before your go, it's just setting the order. And the movement, isn't occurring along the way in the intervening period. And it's called strike rank. But again, at the end of the round, 12 is over, and then mysteriously, it all just resets. There's kind of a fictional temporal break there, where maybe you're trying to do something that's going to take you a long time, but you've had a long time since you went. So shouldn't those strike ranks, until 12 kind of count as to you getting ready to do it? No, here in the Avalon Hill, they're gone. I mean, you went and you're done to the end of the round, and then it resets and we find out what you're doing, and then that'll set your strike rank and your order for the next round. So it's pretty similar to what I was talking about with the Avalon, with the BRP, except that they retain the term strike rank. And then the calculation for it correspondingly is a little bit different, because you have all those strike rank calculations that you do in the original RuneQuest for that order. So this is pretty detailed. I mean, you need a chart, a spreadsheet to really, keep on track. And then the dates are different. And then there's the Avalon Hill re-release in 1993. And so when a person may have encountered these, and remember, a given person, getting a version of RuneQuest opens it up, and they go in. They go all in, and they learn it. And this is how it's played. I mean, the game has a certain, shall we say, evangelical quality, which leads you to, take the text as you learn it. And this is the text because I have it. People take that very seriously in this game. Where does that bring us further along? Going into the mid-2000s Mithras mongoose crisis of RuneQuest is even worse to talk about, and I won't go there. Partly because I don't know, and I don't want to, thank you very much, who called whose mom what. Apparently a lot of that. So, all that aside, I'm just picking up my Mithras. Now, I have my hardback, and I was just looking around for it, but I was forced to resort to my PDF Quick Start. So if that's different from actual Mithras, which I do have, then someone, fill in the gap. But this is what the Mithras Quick Start PDF tells me. And here, let's see if I don't want to read the wrong thing on my deal. Okay. Now, Mithras is super standard. It doesn't use, old Runequest logic at all, which is kind of interesting because in many other ways, the Mithras Runequest was the first really serious callback to the late 70s version, as far as I can tell. But in this, it's not. In this, you roll individual initiative. Oh, look, it's the early 90s. We all roll individual initiative, and that fixes the order for everybody for each round, and the round resets. And as with a lot of the things we're talking about, when it's your go, we move into everything you can do, moving, etc. Super ordinary, super familiar. And there are some interesting aspects of this that aren't quite so bad. I find this particular thing kind of limiting in lots of ways throughout the huge number of role-playing games that feature it. But it does have an interesting quality where it's kind of like everybody gets off on the right foot or the wrong foot at the beginning, and then they have to kind of eat that in terms of ordering for the rest of the combat. I found the same phenomenon in Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition, which isn't actually all that bad a thing. You kind of start this big confrontation, and everybody kind of starts with this combat specific sense of, okay, I got off a little slow. I got off nice and fast. And then everybody and you have to kind of cope with that as a feature of this particular combat as a whole. Given a little narration, a little, descriptiveness, without trying to push anything, but just working with what you know, more choreography emerges from that than you might think, and it starts to be very reactive. You start, we know whether your character is scrambling behind the rock. We know whether your character is kind of reeling a little off balance from that blow. Even without really changing the chances due to that, there's an organic quality to it that isn't really as bad as it sounds when I just say, we just fucking randomly determine who goes in what order, and then you're stuck in that. We'll just do that like robots round after round. Well, what's a round? In this case, it actually is a little bit more like the original, somewhat, in that the rounds doesn't really reset. It just wraps around to the beginning of the order again. Now, you're not wrapping around in terms of raw time, in terms of what people are doing, and that sets the order like the original strike rank. But you are not really, there's not considered to be like a break in the fiction. You're just kind of, this guy, he went a while ago. So by now, everybody's kind of had the chance to do everything they were doing in that order. So we might as well go to the guy who's, who got off everything they wanted to first last time and, carry through again. So it's a little more, what's the word I want? Non-disruptive. Now, once you accept that it's utterly pragmatic, in its original concept, and we have to retcon if any, reasons why, you're at the bottom of the order for effectively no good reason. But given that, okay, that's the constraint we describe in terms of that constraint, we just keep going. That's fine. As long as we're talking about systems like this, let's consider something very similar where we all roll individual initiative and per character, all the characters, and then we just go in that order and then we call that a round. Sometimes in some games, you re-roll it at the beginning of each round, and one would say, what the hell is that? I mean, does the universe just stop for a little bit, and then there's kind of this, godly recreation of the universe, and then poof, we're all in the beginning of a round. I guess we roll initiative now. No, this is actually not that different from what I just described. A round is basically the time it takes for everybody to get in whatever it was they were doing, in whatever order it was. And then we're just continuing with that, not really worrying. This is why people are often vague about just how long a round is, because, doesn't really matter. It's whatever it was in a certain sphere of time. And what does it mean to put in a new initiative roll at the beginning of each of those, like currently I'm experiencing in the Whispering Vault? It's a fog of war effect. You're saying things change up, just like there was in the original description I was just making of this kind of system, how things were a little uncertain out of the gate, so that some people got off a little faster, some people got off a little slower. This kind of thing where you re-roll for that says, well, that uncertainty is continuous and all the time, you're slipping and sliding a little bit, your attention is divided, and this next action, there's going to be that individual variation in who kind of gets off a little quicker and who gets off a little slower into what they're doing. And that's just, like I said, it's an ongoing fog of war effect. That works pretty well too. So both of those that I just described, the first one being Mithras, they're real standard in role-playing, and they do have that quality of, well, we're just doing it this way, and now talk because, accordingly, because that's what we do. They have that quality, which is not too bad, though. So just, those are my thoughts. But original strike rank, is incredibly sensible. And it is that Avalon Hill one that strikes me as real head scratchy. And I wouldn't be surprised that in all these various licensings that we saw across Europe over the next few years, really, someone else, again, is going to have to do this, but across all these different things, the Quorum game and, there's tons. There's probably going to be a whole lot of individualized, somewhat desperate tweaking of, now, wait, how do we do this? Because it's kind of garbled upon encounter with that Avalon text. It says what to do, but you're looking at it and you're going, really? So, anyway, that's, as far as Runequest Glorantha is concerned, the modern Runequest, I don't have as much direct contact with that, especially not as a text. I have some documents for that. I think I do have the PDF, but there's people who are playing the ton out of it, just a ton of it right now, and are far better off saying what they're experiencing. This is what I learned from Noah, which is that it is not absolutely explicit in the text that strike rank wraps, and that he had gotten the initial impression that it was a lot like this kind of Avalon Hill situation where it stops and then there's a round and then you calculate strike rank all over again, and then it was hitchy, right? There's this weird dimensional effect right there of, well, how come all my old unused strike ranks just before now just go away, and all sorts of things. And when I said, it's supposed to wrap, he was like, oh, that makes sense, and was able to use every rule in there. And it doesn't say it doesn't wrap. So anyway, there's kind of a gray area in the text as far as I understand it. So that's all I know. Gordon asks about Cosmic Zap, which I contracted with Chaosium some years ago to do as part of their Hero Quest applications line, which has morphed over the years into now called Quest Worlds, and to my knowledge may not even include a Glorantha component anymore at all. I don't really know. But anyways, Gordon asks about the project status and what I have learned. Project status. I delivered what I consider to be a working, finished manuscript to Chaosium a couple of years ago. And at that point, my work is done. Everything from there is owned by Chaosium, done by them, produced by them, promoted by them, and that's it. I have no policy control over it. And the nature of the Quest Worlds projects that I'm aware of have kind of all been, sort of strung out. For whatever reason, the whole thing has undergone some policy changes, and takes time in one fashion or another. So who knows? Shall it ever appear? Ask them. What will it look like? Ask them. I'm quite happy with the actual game. For Gordon in particular, you participated in playtests. All I have to say is I learned tons from every single playtest, and when it was all over, sat down, wrote the manuscript from scratch entirely, and was quite pleased with what I saw there. It's really weird. I like it. I think it looks fun. I think it plays fun in the later playtests I did. So that's all I got. I'm done with it. It's theirs. So as far as what I learned from it, though, the first thing I learned has to do with what I just teased Gordon about, which is I no longer actually playtest. I just play the hell out of what I got. And it may be piecemeal. Some of it may be, who knows what, desperation scribbles, or even just a desperation call in the middle of play. Some of it may be meticulously, written out and ordered, and let's do it this way. But in all cases, it's uncritical when we play. We just do it. And it may suck. And it may have properties that, so it works procedurally. I mean, we get through it and there's no confusion or anything, but the effect isn't what I want. Even if it's an effect that some player is saying, oh, that was awesome, and they got real effective right there and they think that's great. I don't care. I didn't like that. That's not what I want for this game. It's not what we're doing. That goes. And another aspect of all this, no negotiation, no feedback. Oh, you have an opinion? Good. Go write it on a bathroom roll. I don't need it. I was there. I was playing. I'm judging on a very intuitive, observational level, reflective rather than, in the moment, unless something really strikes me between the eyes, but I'm not seeking as we play. And that's all I need. So I've been encouraging this in a lot of people, and it's quite difficult to get away from the idea that a play test is like a serious business where we are, pushing the system, and we are, in a committee. We're going to debrief, along the way and stuff like that. I pass out my questionnaire at the end, right? You tick off boxes, am I, unsatisfied, somewhat unsatisfied, a little unsatisfied. Okay. A little better than okay. I mean, all the way up 7 boxes, right? For 10, 12, 15 different things. And fuck that noise. Oh, no way. Not going to work, and it doesn't work. So, that particular set of playthroughs for Cosmic Zap really confirmed my thinking about that. To the point where somebody would say, but it didn't say that in the document. And I'm like, are you talking? So that's kind of one of the main things I would say.